The wind howled, slicing through the pines like a warning we ignored. Marcus and Javier, two strangers bound by a reckless bet, had veered off Colorado's crested butte trails, chasing a thrill that now felt like a mistake. By dusk, they were lost, stranded on a ski lift that groaned to a halt, leaving them dangling above a frozen void where truths could no longer hide. Marcus gripped the icy metal bar of the lift, his breath clouding in the frigid air. At 25, he carried the confidence of someone who'd climbed out of a rough childhood in Atlanta, his dark eyes sharp but warm, like he'd seen the worst and still chose to hope. His red jacket was zipped tight, but the cold seeped through, making his fingers ache. He glanced at Javier, who sat beside him, shivering in a green scarf that matched the pine trees below. Javier, 24, was quieter, his tan skin flushed from the cold, his dark curls peeking out from under a gray beanie. A barista from Denver, he'd come to the resort on a whim, hoping to escape the weight of a life he hadn't yet figured out. "Some shortcut, huh?" Marcus said, forcing a grin to break the tension. The lift creaked, swaying slightly, and Javier's knuckles whitened as he clutched the edge of the seat. "I swear I saw this trail on the map," Javier muttered, his voice tinged with guilt. "It was supposed to cut 10 minutes off." Marcus chuckled, though his heart wasn't in it. 10 minutes to what? Narnia? Javier's lips twitched, but his eyes stayed on the snow below, glinting faintly in the fading light. They'd met that morning at the resort's base lodge, two solo snowboarders paired up by chance after a group of locals dared them to tackle the infamous Black Diamond Trail. Neither wanted to back down. Marcus because he never let a challenge slide, and Javier because he was tired of feeling invisible. Now here they were, stuck 30 feet above the ground, with no cell service and a storm brewing on the horizon. The silence stretched, heavy with the kind of quiet that forces you to think too much. Marcus shifted, his snowboard boots scraping the lift's footrest. "You ever get that feeling," he said, "like you're running from something, but you don't even know what?" Javier's head snapped up, his brown eyes catching Marcus's. For a moment, he looked like he might brush it off, but something in Marcus's voice, raw, unguarded, made him pause. "Yeah," he said softly, "all the time." Marcus nodded, staring out at the darkening peaks. He hadn't meant to say that. He hadn't meant to say anything. But being stuck up here, with nowhere to go and no one to perform for, made the words slip out. "Back home," he said, "I was always the guy who had it together. Good grades, track star, got out of a bad neighborhood. Everyone thought I was unstoppable." But he hesitated, his breath hitching. "I'm not sure I'm who they think I am." Javier tilted his head, curious but careful. "What do you mean?" Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd never said it out loud, not to anyone. Not to his mom, who prayed for him every Sunday, or his best friend, who'd probably laugh it off. But up here, with the world reduced to this cold metal seat and Javier's steady gaze, it felt safe. I think I'm gay," he said, the words tumbling out like they'd been waiting years to escape. "And I've been scared to death to admit it." The lift swayed, the wind picking up, but Javier didn't flinch. His eyes softened, and a small, knowing smile curved his lips. "That's a hell of a thing to carry alone," he said. "But you're not alone up here." Marcus blinked, caught off guard. "You mean?" Javier nodded, his smile fading into something more serious. "I've known since I was 15. Didn't tell anyone until last year. My family, they're traditional. They didn't take it well." He looked away, his voice dropping. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm better off hiding it again." The confession hung between them, fragile but heavy, like the snowflakes starting to fall. Marcus felt a rush of relief, but also something deeper, a connection he hadn't expected. "Why'd you tell them then?" he asked. Javier shrugged, his scarf slipping slightly. "I got tired of lying. Tired of pretending I was someone I'm not just to make them comfortable. But it cost me. My dad hasn't spoken to me in months." Marcus's chest tightened. He knew that kind of silence, the kind that cuts deeper than words. "I haven't told anyone," he admitted. "Not even my mom. She's got enough to worry about. But keeping it in, it's like I'm suffocating." Javier reached out, his gloved hand brushing Marcus's arm. It was brief, but it sent a jolt through Marcus, warm and terrifying all at once. "You don't have to suffocate," Javier said. "Not forever." The snow fell harder now, dusting their jackets. The lift hadn't moved in 20 minutes, and the cold was sinking into their bones. But somehow, the space between them felt warmer, like their words had carved out a small sanctuary in the storm. "Tell me something real," Marcus said suddenly, desperate to keep this feeling alive. "Something you've never told anyone." Javier hesitated, his breath visible in the air. Then he laughed, a soft, nervous sound. "Okay, when I was a kid, I used to sneak into my sister's room and try on her dresses. Not because I wanted to be a girl, but because they made me feel free, like I could be someone else for a while." Marcus grinned, picturing a young Javier twirling in a too big dress. "That's cute as hell," he said. "You ever get caught?" "Once," Javier said, his cheeks reddening. "My mom thought it was a phase. I let her believe that." Marcus leaned back, the lift creaking under his weight. "My turn, I guess. When I was 17, I kissed a guy at a party. It was quick, in a dark corner, and we never talked about it again. But I think about it all the time. How it felt right." Javier's eyes widened, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned closer, their shoulders brushing. "What was his name?" "Dion," Marcus said, the name tasting like a secret finally set free. "He moved away that summer." The wind howled again, but it felt distant now, like the world was shrinking to just the two of them. Marcus's heart pounded, not from the cold or the height, but from the way Javier looked at him, like he saw all the pieces Marcus had been hiding and didn't flinch. "You think we're gonna freeze up here?" Javier asked, half joking, but his voice trembled slightly. "Nah," Marcus said, his tone lighter than he felt. "We've got too much to say to die now." Javier laughed, and the sound was like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time all day, Marcus didn't feel lost. The ski lift groaned, a low, mournful sound that echoed their growing unease. Snow piled on their shoulders, and the temperature was dropping fast. Marcus and Javier had shared pieces of themselves, but the cold reality of their situation was closing in. Stranded, with no sign of rescue and a storm rolling over the peaks. Marcus stamped his boots against the lift's footrest, trying to keep the blood flowing. "You think anyone's noticed we're gone?" he asked, his voice muffled by the scarf he'd pulled over his chin. Javier squinted into the swirling snow. "The lodge was packed. They probably think we're still shredding the slopes." He paused, then added, "Or they're too busy to care." Marcus caught the edge in Javier's tone, the same quiet bitterness he'd heard when Javier mentioned his family. "You don't talk much about people back home," Marcus said carefully. "You got friends in Denver?" Javier's jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "A few, mostly co-workers. They're cool, but I keep my distance. Easier that way." Marcus nodded, understanding more than he wanted to admit. He'd done the same, building walls around himself to avoid questions he wasn't ready to answer. "I get it," he said. "I've got friends who'd probably be fine if I told them, but I keep waiting for the perfect moment, like it's gonna magically feel safe." Javier turned to him, his expression softer now. "There's no perfect moment, man. You just leap, and hope you land somewhere soft." The words hit Marcus like a punch. He wanted to leap, to let go of the fear that had chained him for years. But up here, with the wind screaming and the lift swaying, leaping felt like falling. Javier shivered, pulling his scarf tighter. "You ever think about what it'd be like to just be yourself? No hiding, no pretending." "All the time," Marcus admitted. "I used to dream about moving somewhere new, where no one knows me. Start fresh. Be honest from the jump." "Where'd you go in those dreams?" Javier asked, his voice quieter now, like he was picturing it too. "Somewhere warm," Marcus said with a grin. "Maybe Miami. Sun, beaches, no judgment." "You?" Javier thought for a moment, his breath forming clouds in the air. "San Francisco. I went there once as a kid. Felt like everyone was just free. Like you could be whoever you wanted, and no one would blink." Marcus imagined Javier in San Francisco, laughing under golden sunlight, no weight on his shoulders. The image warmed him even as the cold bit deeper. "You'd fit there," he said. "You've got that vibe. Quiet, but bold when it counts." Javier's cheeks flushed, and he ducked his head. "Bold, huh? That's a new one." "It's true," Marcus said, his voice steady. "You're up here, spilling your guts to a stranger. That's brave as hell." Javier met his eyes, and for a moment, the storm faded. "You're not a stranger anymore," he said softly. The words settled into Marcus's chest, heavy and warm. He wanted to say something back, something that matched the weight of that moment, but the lift jolted suddenly, throwing them against the bar. Javier gasped, grabbing Marcus's arm, and for a second, they clung to each other, hearts racing. "Shit," Marcus muttered, his pulse pounding. "This thing's gonna fall apart." "It won't," Javier said, though his voice shook. "It's just old. They'll get it moving soon." Marcus wasn't so sure. The snow was coming down in sheets now, obscuring the slopes below. He could barely see the trail they'd veered off, the one that had seemed so promising hours ago. "How'd we even end up here?" he asked, half to himself. Javier laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "Bad decisions and too much ego. That's how." Marcus snorted. "Speak for yourself. I was just following your lead." "My lead?" Javier's eyes sparkled with mock indignation. "You're the one who said, 'Let's go for it'? What's the worst that could happen?" Marcus groaned, rubbing his face. "Yeah, I'm never saying that again." They both laughed, the sound cutting through the wind. It felt good, like a release valve for the tension building inside them. But the laughter faded, and the cold crept back in. Marcus's fingers were numb now, and Javier's teeth were chattering. "We need to stay warm," Marcus said, scooting closer. "Body heat, right?" Javier hesitated, then nodded. They pressed their shoulders together, the small act feeling bigger than it should. Marcus could feel Javier's warmth through their jackets, and it grounded him, like an anchor in the storm. "Tell me something else," Javier said, his voice low. "Something good." Marcus thought for a moment, digging through memories for something to share. "Okay, last summer I went camping with my cousin. Middle of nowhere, just stars and a campfire. I felt peaceful, like I could breathe for the first time in years." Javier smiled, his eyes distant. "That sounds nice. I don't get out much. Too many shifts at the coffee shop. You ever take a day off? Marcus asked. Rarely, Javier said. But when I do, I draw. Sketches, mostly. People, places. Keeps me sane. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You're an artist? That's dope. What do you draw? Javier shrugged, a little shy. Whatever catches my eye. Faces, mostly. I like capturing moments. Like this one. Marcus's heart skipped. You draw this? Us freezing our asses off. Javier laughed. Yeah, the way you look right now, all tough but scared shitless? That's worth sketching. Marcus nudged him, grinning. You're trouble, you know that? Takes one to know one. Javier shot back. The lift creaked again, but this time it didn't jolt. Marcus let out a breath, his eyes drifting to Javier's face. In the dim light, with snow dusting his curls, Javier looked beautiful. Not in a loud way, but in a quiet, real way that made Marcus's chest ache. You're staring, Javier said, his voice teasing but soft. Marcus didn't look away. Yeah, he said. I am. The storm was relentless now. A white wall of snow that swallowed the world below. Marcus and Javier huddled closer, their breaths mingling in the icy air. The ski lift hadn't moved in over an hour, and the cold was no longer just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. But the weight of their shared secrets kept them tethered, a fragile warmth against the freeze. Marcus's teeth chattered as he spoke. You ever think about what happens if we don't get out of this? Javier's eyes widened, but he didn't shy away from the question. Yeah, he said quietly, but I don't want to go there. Not yet. Marcus nodded, respecting the boundary. He flexed his numb fingers, trying to focus on something other than the creeping fear. Okay, then let's talk about something else. If you could be anywhere right now, where would you be? Javier tilted his head, thinking. Somewhere warm, maybe a beach in Mexico. My mom used to take us to Puerto Vallarta when I was little. I'd sit in the sand, drawing the waves. Marcus smiled, picturing a young Javier with a sketch pad, the ocean stretching out before him. Sounds like you were a serious kid. I was, Javier said, his voice soft. Always watching, always trying to figure out where I fit. You? Marcus leaned back, the lift swaying slightly. I'd be in my mom's kitchen. She makes this cornbread that's so good. It's practically illegal. I'd give anything for a piece right now. Javier laughed, the sound bright despite the cold. Cornbread over a beach? You're wild. Hey, don't knock it till you try it, Marcus said, grinning. What's your mom's best dish? Javier's smile faded slightly. Tamales. She makes them every Christmas. Or she used to. I haven't been home for the holidays since I came out. The words hung heavy, and Marcus felt a pang of guilt for asking. That's rough, he said. You miss her. Javier nodded, his eyes glistening. Every day. But I can't go back to pretending. Not even for her. Marcus reached out, his gloved hand resting on Javier's. It was a small gesture, but it felt like crossing a line, one he'd never dared to cross before. Javier didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his hand over, their fingers interlocking through the thick fabric. You don't have to pretend up here, Marcus said, his voice low but firm. Not with me. Javier's breath hitched, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind roared, but it couldn't drown out the quiet intensity between them. Marcus's heart raced, not from fear but from the weight of what he wanted to say, what he wanted to do. Marcus, Javier said, his voice barely above a whisper. Why does this feel so right? Marcus swallowed, his throat tight. I don't know, but it does. They sat there, hands clasped, the storm raging around them. Marcus's mind was a whirlwind of fear and hope, but Javier's presence steadied him. He'd spent years running from this feeling, burying it under bravado and excuses. But now, stranded in the middle of nowhere, it was impossible to ignore. Javier shifted, his shoulder pressing against Marcus's. You ever been in love? He asked, the question catching Marcus off guard. Marcus hesitated, his mind flashing to Dion, to that fleeting kiss years ago. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe I was too scared to let it happen. You? Javier's lips curved into a sad smile. Once. His name was Leo. We were together for a year, but he wanted to stay in the closet. I couldn't do it. It broke us. Marcus's chest ached. Not just for Javier but for himself. For all the times he'd chosen safety over truth. I'm sorry, he said. That sounds like it hurt. It did, Javier said. But it taught me something. You can't love someone if you're hiding who you are. It's not fair to either of you. Marcus nodded, the words sinking in. He'd been hiding for so long. He wasn't sure he knew how to stop. But looking at Javier, seeing the courage in his eyes, made him want to try. The lift jolted again, harder this time, and they both gasped, gripping the bar. Snow stung their faces, and for a moment Marcus thought this was it, the end. But the lift held, creaking ominously. We're okay, Javier said, more to himself than to Marcus. We're okay. Marcus squeezed his hand. Yeah, we are. They fell silent, the storm's roar filling the space between them. Marcus's mind raced, piecing together everything Javier had said, everything he'd felt. He wanted to be brave, to be honest, not just for Javier but for himself. But the fear was still there, a shadow he couldn't shake. Javier broke the silence. If we get out of this, what's the first thing you're gonna do? Marcus thought for a moment, then smiled. Tell my mom. About me. About this. He gestured vaguely between them, his heart pounding at the admission. Javier's eyes widened, then softened. That's big. Yeah, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the cold. But I'm ready. Javier's smile was small but genuine. I'll hold you to that. The snow kept falling, but Marcus felt a spark of warmth, like a promise he was finally ready to keep. The ski lift was a frozen cage now, the storm a relentless beast clawing at their resolve. Marcus and Javier sat pressed together, their shared warmth the only thing keeping despair at bay. The cold had seeped into their bones, but their conversation, raw, honest, kept their spirits from breaking. Marcus's voice was hoarse as he spoke. You ever feel like life's testing you? Like it's throwing everything at you to see if you'll crack? Javier nodded, his breath shallow. All the time. This, he gestured at the storm, the lift, the endless snow. This feels like the universe saying, okay, Javier, let's see what you're made of. Marcus managed a weak laugh. Yeah, well, the universe is a jerk. Javier's lips twitched, but his eyes were serious. Maybe, but it also brought us here. Together. The words hit Marcus hard, stirring something deep in his chest. He looked at Javier, really looked at him, the way his curls clung to his forehead, the way his eyes held both fear and defiance. He'd never met anyone like Javier, someone who could be so open, so real, in the face of all this. You're something else, Marcus said, his voice soft but earnest. I've never met anyone who just says it like it is. Javier shrugged, a shy smile breaking through. I've had a lot of practice keeping quiet. Guess I'm making up for lost time. Marcus chuckled, but the sound faded as the lift creaked again, louder this time. The wind howled, and for a moment, he thought he heard a faint shout from below. His heart leapt, but the snow was too thick to see anything. "Did you hear that?" Javier asked, leaning forward. "Maybe," Marcus said, straining to listen. But the wind swallowed everything, and the hope fizzled out. Could have been nothing. Javier slumped back, his shoulder brushing Marcus's. "I don't want to die up here," he said, his voice barely audible. "You're not gonna die," Marcus said fiercely. "We're not done yet. Not even close." Javier looked at him, his eyes searching. "You really believe that?" "I have to," Marcus said. "Because if I don't, I'm gonna lose it." Javier nodded, his hand finding Marcus's again. Their gloves were stiff with ice, but the contact was enough to ground them. "Okay," Javier said. "Then we keep talking. Keep being here." Marcus squeezed his hand, his chest tight with something he couldn't name. "Deal. Your turn. Tell me something you're scared of. Besides this." Javier hesitated, his breath clouding in the air. "I'm scared I'll never be enough. For my family, for myself, for someone else." Marcus's heart ached. He knew that fear, the gnawing doubt that you'd always fall short. "You're enough," he said, his voice firm. "Right now, right here, you're more than enough." Javier's eyes glistened, and he blinked quickly, looking away. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Marcus said. "I know you're brave. I know you're real. And I know I'm glad I'm stuck up here with you." Javier's laugh was shaky, but it was there. "You're not so bad yourself." The storm raged on, but Marcus felt a shift, like the air between them had changed. He wanted to say more, to tell Javier how much this moment meant, how it was rearranging everything he thought he knew about himself. But the words stuck, caught in the fear that still lingered. Instead, he asked, "What's the dumbest thing you've ever done?" Javier grinned, grateful for the lighter question. "Oh man, sophomore year I tried to impress this guy by sneaking into a concert. Got caught, spent the night in a holding cell. My mom was pissed." Marcus laughed, the sound warming the air. "That's epic. Mine was stealing my neighbor's lawn gnome and hiding it in my principal's office. Got suspended for a week." Javier's eyes sparkled. "You're a menace." "Takes one to know one," Marcus teased, echoing Javier's earlier words. They kept talking, trading stories of dumb decisions and small victories, each one a thread weaving them closer. Marcus told Javier about the time he won a track meet despite a sprained ankle, and Javier shared how he'd taught himself to draw by copying comic books. The cold was still brutal, but their words built a fragile shelter, a space where they could be themselves. Then, a light pierced the snow, a faint, bobbing glow far below. Marcus's heart leapt. "Javier, look!" Javier squinted, his breath catching. "Is that?" "Rescue," Marcus said, hope surging. "They're coming." The light grew closer, and now they could hear voices, muffled but real. Marcus's chest swelled with relief, but also something else, a pang of regret. This moment, this raw, honest connection with Javier was about to end, and he wasn't ready. "Javier," he said, his voice urgent. "Whatever happens down there, this," he gestured between them, "this matters." Javier's eyes locked onto his, steady and sure. "Yeah," he said, "it does." The rescue team's lights cut through the storm like a lifeline. Marcus and Javier clung to each other, their hands still locked, as shouts and the hum of snowmobiles grew louder below. The ski lift swayed, but the fear was fading, replaced by a bittersweet ache, relief that they'd survive, and sorrow that this fleeting, perfect moment was ending. "Almost over," Javier whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Marcus nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, but we're not." The lift jolted to life, creaking as it began to move. Marcus's heart raced, not from the motion but from the weight of what he'd found up here. Javier's hand was still in his, and he didn't want to let go. Not now, not ever. The lift descended slowly, the rescue team's voices clearer now. "You boys okay up there?" a gruff voice called. "We're good," Marcus shouted back, though his eyes never left Javier's. Javier smiled, a small, shaky thing that held 1,000 promises. "We're really good," he said softly, just for Marcus. The lift reached the ground, and the rescue team swarmed them, wrapping them in blankets and checking for frostbite. Marcus and Javier were pulled apart, but their eyes stayed locked, a silent vow to hold on to this. The team hustled them toward a snowmobile, but Marcus stopped, turning to Javier. "Give me your number," he said, his voice urgent. "I'm not losing you to this mountain." Javier's laugh was warm, despite the cold. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers stiff, and they exchanged numbers under the glow of the rescue lights. The team urged them to move, but Marcus grabbed Javier's arm, pulling him close. "I'm telling my mom," Marcus said, his voice fierce, "and I'm calling you tomorrow." Javier's eyes shone. "You better." The ride back to the lodge was a blur of warmth and exhaustion. Marcus and Javier sat side by side in the snowmobile, blankets draped over their shoulders. The storm was easing, the stars peeking through the clouds, and Marcus felt something he hadn't in years: hope. At the lodge, they were met with hot cocoa and concerned faces. The locals who dared them to take the trail apologized profusely, but Marcus barely heard them. His focus was on Javier, who sat across from him, sipping cocoa and stealing glances. Later, as the crowd thinned, they found a quiet corner by the lodge's fireplace. The fire crackled, casting a warm glow over Javier's face. Marcus leaned closer, his voice low. "I meant what I said up there. It's real." Javier nodded, his eyes steady. "I know, and I'm not running from it." Marcus's chest swelled, and for the first time he felt like he could breathe. He reached for Javier's hand, not caring who saw. "Then let's do this. For real." Javier's smile was radiant, like the sun breaking through snow. "For real." They sat there, hands entwined, the fire warming their skin. The trail had been a mistake, a reckless choice that could have ended in tragedy. But it had led them here, to a truth neither could have found alone. Marcus knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Telling his mom, facing the world as his true self, but with Javier beside him, he felt ready. The next morning, Marcus called his mom. His hands shook as he told her, but her voice was soft, loving. "I just want you to be happy," she said, and Marcus cried, relief washing over him like a wave. Javier called too, leaving a message for his dad. He didn't know if it would change anything, but he felt lighter for trying. They met for coffee in Denver a week later, then again the week after. Each meeting was a step, each glance a promise. The wrong trail had led them to the right truth, and in that truth they found not just each other, but themselves.